Welcome back to another episode of Faces of Free Enterprise put on by the State Chamber of Oklahoma. My name is Rick Nagel. I'm serving this year as the chair. And we started this series to talk about capitalism and all the good things about it, how it's lifted families and individuals up. It's been tied, obviously, to the foundation of our country. And it's, our American experiment, our Oklahoma's experiment is inextricably interwoven with it, and it's obviously taken this whole nation to great heights as the leader in the free world and the largest economic power globally. But people have different definitions of it today. Some people aren't so sure it's the model we ought to have. And even when people come up here and talk about being pro-business, some have different ideas about what pro-business even means anymore. And so we put this series together to talk about these things. And I can think of no one better to be sitting down with right now than you, our 28th governor of the state of Oklahoma, Kevin Stitt, who before getting into this was an incredibly successful business person. I mean, your story's legendary. $1,000, a laptop computer, $2,000, sat down and said, I want to get into the mortgage business and make something great out of it. And today, 42 states, $20 billion in mortgages that y'all are servicing today. Just an incredible story. And so you've gotten to see both sides of it. Not only what it's like to build a business, but now this side, you're on the other end of regulating businesses, and there's a balance there. We're going to talk a little bit about that, but we're excited to have you here today.
Thanks, Rick. I really appreciate it, and you're not a bad business guy yourself, and you've been very, very successful. And this American dream is something I hope we get to talk about, because I just think America's exceptional. This idea that in our country that you can be anybody that you want to, and people are flooding here. We're like, this is where everybody wants to come around the world because of our freedoms and our free markets and our the ability that you're only limited by the dreams in your heart and how hard you're willing to work for them. And I just think that's something that everybody needs to talk about. And I'm so happy you guys are talking about this thing, because sometimes big business gets a bad rap, but you forget about the employees and how they uplift and they give everybody opportunity. And I just think business people have always been my heroes, because they're creating something and they're giving opportunities and they're working with their friends. And I know that's what drives me is it's not about making money. It's about working with your friends and creating the right culture and going achieving something and setting a goal and winning. And it's just fun. It's fun to compete, and it's fun to set big goals and dreams, and you can accomplish them in right here from Oklahoma. I think we have the best state in the country.
Well, there's no doubt, and I agree with you with that. I live here too, and if you think about where Oklahoma is in the rankings with respect to competitiveness, cost of doing business, overall regulatory environment, since you've been governor, working with the legislature, it's moved from where we were to where we are now, which in many cases it's climbed in every single category. Number one in the country in overall cost competitiveness to do business. On and on and on. The stats have been amazing. Let's talk about the American dream maybe to start with. Yeah. It seems like it's under attack. 53% of Americans today think capitalism is a good idea. Slightly more than that when you describe it as free enterprise, have a little bit better appreciation for it. But only 53% of Americans. We saw this election in New York with Mondani get elected, declared socialist. Some people are looking for a change. Why do you think that is, and how do we get the magic back?
I think obviously, there's price pressure. Things are costing more. People are seeing, costs go up, and this idea that, am I going to be able to achieve a life better than my parents? I think those are all real questions. So he's tapping into a real concern or a fear about a young person. But if you really study history and you think about the alternative, free buses and let's take over grocery stores and freeze rent prices. And we understand, if you look and you study history, that is not a model that works. On the opposite side, more government regulation gets passed through and things cost more. When you over-regulate something, you actually are doing the opposite. You're hurting the people that you're trying to help. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer. But the great thing about America is our strong middle class and this ability to go out and start a business and then creating that free market that allows me to compete against you. And when you deregulate something, you actually are going to create that great middle class. So I just think it's a different way to approach it. But this is something we should all be talking about, because that New York election, they were hitting on something that the cost of things are really concerning people. And to me, it's the growth of the federal government. And we need to get the federal government under control. And our founding fathers talked about the states' rights and this federalism. Oklahoma is different than California. We're different than New York or Texas, and New Hampshire is different than South Carolina. And when you allow the states to operate, that's where real innovation comes from. And federal government should not be dictating a one-size-fits-all throughout the United States. And I think those are ultimately the problems that we have right now. The reason prices are going up is because we keep borrowing. And we could get into that on the economic side, but that's what's devaluing the dollar. That's what's causing things to go up. And I can see the real frustration, but it's not. The problem isn't more government. The problem is less government. It's what we need to create to get the economy rolling.
So let's pivot then. I couldn't agree more with all of that. It's well said. Let's talk about Oklahoma, for example. So there is a balance that government has with respect to regulating certain parts of business. If it goes too far, we get exactly what you've talked about. It goes, if it's totally unchecked, it can go a different direction. We've seen that. Where do you think the right balance kind of ought to be? And I know that's probably somewhat sector specific, but when you're up here and you're dealing with lawmakers and lobbyists and coming in from different angles, you have some that are looking for legislation to protect their moat, right? Crony capitalism, right? In that respect of, hey, we don't want anybody else to get in. We've seen examples of that. In some cases, it's completely deregulated. There's examples of that where maybe a little bit might have helped. How do you think about the balance of that?
Yeah, I mean, that's the $1 million question. That's the tough question. Obviously, when I think about here's something that Oklahomans we should really think about and contemplate as citizens, because more government, usually they have the higher moral ground. For example, I'll give you an example. If Highway Patrol comes to me, or the city of Edmond comes to me and says, we need more police officers. Well, we're for public safety. We support law enforcement. Yeah, let's give them more police officers. Well, how many more? You can always hold the higher ground to say, well, we need more. Well, actually, we need 1,000 troops, or we need 1,000 police officers. Well, isn't 2,000 better than 1,000? Well, how about 3,000? How about 4,000? So the question is always, you can almost hold the higher moral ground on any issue. If I'm a big spending liberal, I can come to you and I can always talk you and say, well, we ought to do more. We ought to do more. We ought to do more. But the problem is, eventually you're going to run out of other people's money. Okay, so I'm always a smaller government guy. We cannot take from you, and just because somebody in Washington, D.C. has some great idea that we need more government to fix this problem. You know how many ants are on the ant pill of homelessness and food insecurity? And I'm not saying that's not a real issue, but you've probably got 400 programs at the federal level and 400 programs at the state level and every church and every nonprofit. And ultimately, I don't think you pass laws and create more government to fix some of these social issues. Ultimately, it's neighbors walking with neighbors, and people need good parents in the home. There's real issues with drug addiction that we need to fix. There's real problems with mental health issues. But just throwing more money and taking more money from the business community and higher taxes to where all of a sudden now we're all just working and beholden to the big government is not the answer either. So that's where does that line go? Rick, that's kind of the $1 million question that everybody fights about every single year. I believe for sure that we're on the we're spending way too much and we need to rein government back in. And I would propose this one issue, a balanced budget amendment. Let Congress debate where to spend the money, but at least tell them they got to spend revenue, right? If Sarah tells me, hey, honey, I want a Ferrari. I'm like, well, sorry, honey, I only make this much money. Here's what I can afford. I can't just continue to borrow and borrow and borrow, but our federal government seems to think that there's an unlimited checkbook here, and it's just not realistic. So I think we need to have some honest conversations as citizens and just keep that in mind. Do we really need it, or are they just have that higher moral ground telling us more is going to always fix things?
Agreed. And it is situational, no doubt about it. And we see examples of that all the time. One of the things that's been interesting to me as a business person watching what happens up here at the Capitol is that kind of like you, when people are running for office, they all print up the brochure and everybody says they're pro-family, pro-business, right? Pro-business is always there. But the votes don't always come down that way. Just in your experience as governor, why do you think that is, that they don't always score out to be on the side of business?
You know, I've been here now for 7 years, and it's very, very interesting question because you're right. Every flyer says I'm for lower taxes, school choice, and limited government, pro-business, et cetera, et cetera. But when it comes time to cut taxes or limit government, but basically what happens when you get here to this building, man, you just get sucked into the lobbyist crowd, and look how much more good back to the example of higher moral ground. Man, if we only had a little bit more money, we could do these other programs here and help more people. And you fall into this, there's no personal accountability, personal responsibility anymore. And we think we're going to take care of everyone and we're going to fix every problem from Oklahoma City. And that just unfortunately is not real world scenarios. And the other thing is the money is always on the yes side. Okay? What I mean by that is, who's going to benefit from this legislation piece, right? If there's a bill that's run, who's going to benefit if that passes, right? Well, the industry that's pushing that bill is going to hire the lobbyist. They have the money that they're going to benefit from it, so they put money on the yes side. The taxpayers aren't coming in hiring lobbyists to say no on that bill. So all the pressure for the legislature is on the yes side. And that's why I look at myself as, well, I've got to represent the taxpayer. I've got to be the no guy. I've got to be the guy that just says, no, we're not going to do that. I'm going to veto that. I'm not going to go for that. So you just get caught up in this momentum that, and there's a lot of pressure in this building, whether it's Washington, D.C. or here, that you just get caught up and kind of going with the flow. And man, I don't want to make this group mad or this group mad because I'm going to be up for election in 2 years. And so you fall into this trap of, you know, I'm only one person. I really can't fix it. I'll just go along with the crowd.
You're in your second term. You've done a lot to help make Oklahoma a lot more competitive. We've had a lot of wins. What more can we do to create that American dream economy where folks want to come here, start a business, and have everything they need to be successful? What's left? You know,
if I take you back, 2018 when I was running, we had what got me passionate about serving my state is we were not performing well. If you remember, we were having teacher walkouts. There were billion-dollar budget deficits. Our savings account had zero money in it. And I was like, what is going on? This is my state. I'm a fourth-generation Oklahoman, and we can do so much better. And I saw Texas thriving and Florida and Tennessee, and I thought, we need a businessman governor. And now we have the largest savings account we've ever had. I've cut taxes. We've got school choice. I've done tort reform. We're a pro-business state. We have a $14 billion investment just this year. New investments in Oklahoma. It's a record. And so I'm really proud of all that. So what can we continue to do? We have to continue this momentum. And I think it's stacking a couple of good businessmen governors together back to back, and we can take this state like Tennessee. Tennessee had 3 really good businessmen governors back to back, and they took their state to zero income tax. That's now where you see the car industry is going to, manufacturing's exploded. Tennessee's really doing well. And Tennessee was, they were not a top tier state 20 years ago. And we can do that if we elect the right businessman governor, and we continue this momentum of limited government. Let's get government out of the lives of business. Let's be the most pro-business state. I was just in Singapore. Singapore is a country that's like the size of Rhode Island, with 6 million people, a few more million people than we have. And because they're so pro-business, they just exploded. That's where internationally all the companies want to locate. we should be the headquartered capital of the world right here in Oklahoma City, and that's what I'm driving for. Energy is another big deal. I pass behind the meter. It's also a free market approach. So we love our public utilities. We want them to create more generation. But if they're going to hold you hostage to higher prices, I passed a bill that allows a company to come in, private individual, and put your own gas turbine with gas and then create your own electricity for your factory or for your data center. And I think that's going to be a huge differentiator for ourselves. So I think energy, getting the right person, keeping our pro-business policies, and Oklahoma is going to continue this upward of the right climb.
If you're a young, aspiring, business person in America today, and you see this interview, you have a chance to give them your pitch on why Oklahoma, how would you frame it for them?
Well, I think Oklahoma is the way you think of the U.S. it used to be, this American dream, this come to Oklahoma and you can accomplish your dreams from right here. You mentioned it earlier, there's an arbitrage right now on labor cost, on cost of living. Why pay $250,000 for an engineer in California when you can get them for here for $150,000? And that's why I have this international strategy where I've met with 80 different ambassadors, because foreign companies, a lot of times all they know is New York or LA from the movies. Right. And I'm like, that's the worst place to set up a business. You want to come to Oklahoma and Texas and the places where family still matters and faith is important and hard work is appreciated, and this idea that we appreciate when capital is invested. And we're not my regulators, they don't come after businesses. We work with businesses. I signed an EO. This is something that blows people away. And on my executive order, I said, if we don't have our permits done within 30 days, they're free. Because I want my regulators moving at the speed of business. And so people know that we'll get your projects done quickly. We won't be playing gotcha with it. And we want to help people grow. We're not going to be attacking businesses like I see in other states. But I passed business courts, because I saw businesses being attacked in the court system in New York, and Delaware starting to stumble a little bit. Elon pulled out of Delaware in their court system. And so we wanted to pass that to get Oklahoma's court system more pro-business as well.
If you're trying to appeal to young folks right now that are on the fence about what form of government is best, a socialist, big government, more control, regulated industries to the point where they look like government, versus free market, how do you make that easy for somebody who's just thinking about this for the first time?
Oh man, I mean, take an economics class, take a supply and demand, understand what drives prices, do some research, go move to Cuba for a while. Let's look at the GDP of Venezuela before and after. Go look at Russia's economy and how government control from one area and how that affects the quality of life throughout. They don't know how lucky they have it in the U.S. And that's why people are wanting to flood here. And it's just so simple that socialist, if you look at the Democratic platform that continue, and there's good Democrats out there that believe in fiscal discipline, but there's some that believe and they just want 100% government control. Mandani, that just got elected in New York, is talking crazy stuff right now. And if you think about that, that will lead to socialism, which is government controlling every single thing of your life.
And at the core of that is freedom. You get to vote with your wallet too, right? I don't have to buy your product. You don't have to sell it to me. I mean, we get a freedom. You have the freedom to exchange or not, and I think that's really at the core of it. And maybe a good place to wrap up here. Well, thank you very much for your time, everybody. Governor Stitt, thank you so much for leading our state these last 7 years. You're getting ready to come into the most exciting one yet, right? Number 8. So with your last year. So we're expecting big things. But thank you so much for your leadership and sitting down with us here today.
Thanks, Brett.
Appreciate you.
Thanks, buddy.
Yep.